The Endless is about these two brothers who have this really terrible life in Los Angeles as we enter the movie. And they get this mysterious tape in the mail. And on this tape is this sort of Heaven's Gate-esque message from a cult, with them going like, oh, we're just so excited for the ascension, and it's clearly a death cult saying they're all going to go kill themselves. And in that moment, you learn that the older brother pulled out the younger brother many years ago, and that the older brother told the younger brother that they had all already committed mass suicide, and the younger brother's just like, that was our family. Why did you pull us out? Our lives are horrible now.
He's looking at the tape and he's like, clearly they didn't. They just sent us a tape, you know?
Yeah. And then the older brother agrees to go back with the younger brother to get closure.
Our process really heavily relies on rehearsal. So luckily we live in the same building, so we just rehearsed the absolute hell out of it. And so that it was just muscle memory. And then we would do a little rehearsal with the cast as well, or between each other before the day before we'd shoot. After we'd wrap, we'd rehearse the next day. So that's when we'd like rediscover it again and kind of like find the little pieces so that all the hard decisions were already made and you can kind of rely on the decisions you made with a clearer head.
This is our third movie, and our movies have more and more dealt with the idea of conformity and rebellion thematically through the film. So this one was just the one where it was the most conspicuous, where it's like, oh, clearly the theme of this movie is something to do with rebellion and conformity and anti-conformity. I think that's why having a story in a cult is interesting. And then in terms of research, it was, I would say that this movie was less about research in terms of like, we all know a lot about cults. We all watched lots of documentaries about them. But in the process of this story, how do we give someone something unexpected? Yeah. That we truly do kind of, you know, what's the difference between a cult and a religion? I guess it's numbers, ultimately, but that's not really what this movie's about. It asks even bigger questions than that.
And actually, we had this debate about exactly what happens when they go back to, you know, at this point you just call it a cult because that's a word everybody knows. But we were talking about it, it's like, that's not really a cult exactly. When we even wanted to develop it, there's not like one central leader and he's not a charlatan and they're not, you know, there's not, but there kind of are all these odd cult things. And so we landed on this word commune and we thought it was, well, you know, I thought it was like, ah, brilliant, yeah, that's right, it's a commune, it's not a cult. And then I watched a cult documentary and the person's like, you're in a cult. And he's like, I'm not, I'm in a commune. I was like, no, I'm not original at all.
We spend several days shot listing before we get to set. Our location scouts are very creative. That sounds funny, but they are.
Yeah.
Where we're figuring out shots while we're location scouting. Oftentimes, the scripts are written for a particular location. And I think the visual style is built into all of that. The visual style is built into, it's in the writing, it's obviously in the shot listing phase, and then there's a little bit of jazz that happens on set. We'll figure out things and find things.
The best way we've found, all three of our movies are actually shot in a pretty similar style, and it's this. We kind of landed on how to describe it, especially because we have an operator that we work with really closely. And our camera's not a person. It's not like a documentarian, but it is alive. And like it's thinking, you know, and it has a will of its own. And that actually ends up coming into the editing a lot too, is what, you know, when you choose that, what is, it kind of makes the movie feel like it is quite literally alive. Resolution, our first movie, takes that almost to an extreme, but we decided we never wanted to drop that aesthetic because it still made a lot of sense in like our own instincts.
You can argue there's the same omniscient character in all of our movies.
Yeah.
And it's whatever is behind the camera.